I-70-71 downtown ramp-up project.
The downtown ramp-up project is...
The downtown ramp-up project.
I've talked everyone's ears off about downtown ramp-up.
This is Columbus's downtown ramp-up. A $1.4 billion decades-long program to re-engineer how two major interstates cross the city. Roughly 55 million vehicles use this corridor every year, and for locals it's been a daily grind of short merges, sudden lane changes, and unpredictable queues. The plan to fix it completely rebuilds and reimagines the geometry of the entire segment, all while keeping traffic moving. Today I'll break down all the engineering behind the scenes, why it's an over 25-year-long project, and who is paying for what. Columbus is no longer a sleeper. It's Ohio's largest city and one of the Midwest's fastest growing hubs. The city area is pushing past 900,000 residents, with downtown and the near downtown neighborhoods adding people, jobs, and events year over year. That growth concentrates travel demand in the core. Workers and students headed in, residents moving between districts, and a steady stream of deliveries and services threading tight urban blocks. Hitting 1 million residents is not very far off. Through the middle of that growth runs Interstate 70 and 71. Braided together in a 1.5-mile overlap just south of downtown. Built to earlier standards and hemmed in by development, the geometry forces short merge distances and multiple lane changes in very little space. By the late 2000s, the data showed roughly 150,000 vehicles per day, about 17,000 of which were trucks. These were moving through a corridor that not only produced a ton of traffic, but also a disproportionately high share of accidents. Not only was this a safety concern, but it would largely add to the congestion. In response to this mounting pressure, the Ohio Department of Transportation in the city of Columbus spent the late 2000s and early 2010s on traffic and safety studies, environmental review, and public outreach. The corridor sits in a tight right-of-way, and the findings showed that it packs too many ramp decisions into that 1.5-mile stretch, and many bridges had reached the end of their service lives. Because a downtown interstate cannot be shut down, the fix became a sequenced multi-contract program that builds a piece, flips traffic, and then funds the next piece. The plan adds a lane in each direction and restores 2 continuous through lanes for I-70 east and west and I-71 north and south. Through traffic stays in the continuous lanes, while most downtown access shifts to the urban avenue pair on Fulton and Mound. That change removes short, risky weaves with roughly 70% fewer lane changes, and it moves decisions from freeway speed to signals where queues can be stored safely. At the street level, ramps at downtown intersections go away to create safer crossings. Bridges return wider with better sidewalks, lighting, and streetscape that help reconnect neighborhoods. Under the surface, retaining walls create room inside the trench, full depth pavement and upgraded drainage reset the life cycle, and new detectors, cameras, and message signs allow operators to actively manage the corridor once the geometry is live. But you're going to want to gear up because this is a very, very, very long project. But first, a quick message from this video's sponsor, Raycon. I've been using the Raycon Everyday Earbuds Classic while editing, traveling, and working out. They slip in, stay put, and don't make my ears ache after a long day. After using them for a while, I can honestly say they're inexpensive for how high quality of a product they are. I use active noise cancellation when I need to focus, multi-point connectivity so I can hop between laptop and phone without digging through Bluetooth menus, and an ergonomic fit that doesn't need constant fiddling. When I'm heading out the door, a quick 10-minute charge buys me about 90 minutes of playtime. With the case, I can get up to 32 hours total, so I'm never really babysitting the battery. If I'm out in public shooting on a busy sidewalk, awareness mode lets me hear what's around me without pausing the audio. They also come in a range of clean color options if you want something that fits your style, making it feel less like just earbuds and more like an accessory. And it's the perfect time because Raycon's going big for Black Friday and Cyber Monday, up to 30% off across the site. Click the link in the description or head to buyraycon.com/buildcore to save money and support the channel. Construction began in the summer of 2010, about 15 years before the time of this video's recording. By 2013, crews were carving space inside the downtown trench with Phase 2A's retaining wall so future ramps and bridges could fit without pushing the footprint outward. The next year, Phase 1 completed. The rebuilt I-670-71 North interchange opened, and the new spring long cap reconnected streets and sidewalks over the freeway. From there, the work moved east to clear conflicts for the core. Phase 2C in 2016 added the westbound I-70 to Mound connector and set up the Urban Avenue approach. Phase 2B in 2017 laid in the big storm sewers that keep the staging areas dry. And Phase 2G in 2019 rebuilt Grant and formalized Fulton eastbound and Mound westbound as the primary downtown feeders. The north side advanced with Phase 3B from 2020 to 2021. 2022, rebuilding I-71 between Broad and Long and replacing the Broad Street Bridge. In parallel, Phase 2E finished in 2022, opening the 2-lane Fulton to I-70 eastbound ramp and finally shifting merge decisions off the freeway and onto signals. So all of what I just went over is completed, but now let's talk about what is under construction as of today. Phase 4R builds the I-70 eastbound to Fulton connection, reconstructs the Front Street Bridge, and finalizes the one-way and two-way patterns on Fulton, Mound, Livingston, and Front. Phases 4A and 4B rebuild the I-70 eastbound main line and replace the high 3rd and 4th Street bridges using staged half-at-a-time construction so through lanes can stay open. On the west side, Phase 6R delivers the Mound to I-70 westbound ramp and ties the surface network back together. After all that work is completed, the final phases are 5 and the rest of 6, addressing the far east and far west sides of I-70. But more notably than the work itself here, and according to ODOT's schedule, these phases aren't supposed to start until 2035. That's 25 years after the initial construction kickoff, and it really made me start to ask some questions. But the truth is, the timing aspect is a bit of a misconception. Think of the whole thing as a program, not a single project. A sequence of interdependent contracts that must be designed, permitted, funded, bid, and built in order, while keeping the same number of vehicles per day moving. Each package has its own environmental clearance, utility relocations, staging plans, and structure work. In addition, there are many dependency chains, such as Front Street needing to reopen before High Street can be demolished. The project also involves complex railroad and river interfaces and tight right-of-way constraints, resulting in a deliberate multi-year rollout extending into the late 2030s. However, the primary reason for the extended timeline may be the phased arrival of funding, which prevents tackling each phase at once. And speaking of which, who is paying for all this? The total investment, as of current estimates, is $1.4 billion. The city of Columbus is covering $98 million, or about 7% of the total amount, most of which is for the local streets and bridge connections. The Mid-Ohio Regional Planning Commission adds roughly $20 million in federal funds, and the U.S. Department of Transportation chipped in another $25 million through a grant, specifically for Phase 4. The rest, by far the majority, is coming from the state of Ohio and Ohio Department of Transportation, backed by a mix of state dollars and federal highway funds that flow through various programs. As of late 2025, it's estimated that somewhere between $400 and $500 million have been spent. Now, although we don't know the exact split, why would the federal government pay so much for a specific, largely local project like this? This corridor is part of the national highway system in one of the region's worst freight bottlenecks. When a downtown overlap amplifies delay variability for thousands of truck trips each day, it raises logistics costs far beyond Columbus. Federal Highway Administration funds target exactly this, projects that restore reliable travel time on nationally significant freight routes. You probably heard me mention a few times earlier the concept of retaining walls. This corridor is a narrow, cut-section trench. If you tried to widen with laid-back slopes, you'd blow past the right-of-way into streets, buildings, rail, and river edges, and you'd never keep traffic moving. Retaining walls let the team make room inside the existing footprint, hold back embankments, thread longer ramps, and tuck bridge abutments in without large property takes. The truth is that a project like this in a location like this would never work without these massively important walls. Another thing I mentioned was that the design pulls most downtown entries and exits onto parallel urban avenue CD roads, so through lanes stay continuous on 70 and 71. That does three things engineers care about. 1, it cuts conflict points in short distance weaving on the main line. 2, it stabilizes speeds, especially for trucks. And 3, it adds storage and control on the CD, paired with cleaner ramp geometry like consistent radii, proper super elevation, full length acceleration and deceleration lanes, and better decision site distance. You get safer merges and more predictable travel times. Also, for maintenance and future city tie-ins, crews can work on the CD layer without tearing up the interstate again. But calling this a program shouldn't grant a free pass on timelines. That explains why work arrives in slices, but it doesn't excuse drifting completion dates. I've driven this corridor multiple times, and I can now say I definitely understand the frustration. The only fair trade for $1 billion project and years of construction is results the average driver can see. When gains show up and temporary patterns disappear the moment concrete cures, the barrels could start to feel like a down payment on a corridor that finally works. At Buildcorp, we're building America, one story at a time. We cover some of the most impressive and headline-grabbing projects and topics across this great country. And with your help, the channel has grown to over 50,000 subscribers and reached well over 10 million people. With that being said, thank you, and I'll see you next time.